This is WAAY 31 Law Call.
Good evening and welcome to WAAY 31 Law Call. I'm Sharon Joviet. Tonight we're talking about slips, trips, and falls. We're talking about premises liability. So if you've been hurt on somebody else's property and you feel like it's their fault, something was wrong with the property, tonight's the night to call in and ask your questions about premises liability. So slip and fall cases, maybe you think of them as being very trivial. Not necessarily. There can be some really bad falls and injuries with premises liability cases. We're going to talk about that. And as you're getting out with the holiday season, maybe you're going to stores and shopping, or maybe you've ordered so many things that are getting delivered to your house. What if the mail carrier or the UPS delivery or FedEx delivery person slips and falls on something in your yard or on your porch? Are you responsible for that? What if you live in an apartment building and they slip and fall at your apartment? Are you in trouble? So we're going to talk about that. The 31 Law Call number, 256-536-0077. You can call in and be live on the air, or you can text to that number as well. And Heath Brooks is here from Timberlake, League & Brooks. Good to have you here.
Good to be here. Serious cases.
Serious cases. People kind of chuckle at it. They think slip and fall, how bad can it be? No, it can be bad.
You never think it's going to happen to you. And the ground comes up really, really quickly.
Yeah.
I've dealt with head injuries, broken legs, broken arms, internal injuries. I mean, it can be a really, really significant and life-changing event when you have a trip and a fall or a slip and fall or any kind of accident you have when you're on somebody else's property, whether that's a business, whether that's a friend, whether that's an apartment complex. So, you know, these are complicated cases and they can have huge consequences.
And you can call from either side, whether you've been the one that's been injured or you've been the one that you're worried about your property and something happening to somebody coming to a party at your house.
Absolutely.
So call in or text us. So we always like to get started with a video. We say, you make the law call. We pulled some video off of YouTube, and this is a gentleman. You may be out at escalators sometime, and hopefully, in this case, it's not even crowded. And this older gentleman, I'm not sure if his hand is hung up there or if he just stepped wrong on the steps. Okay, escalators. Heath, escalators can go bad. They can go really bad, right?
They can go really bad. I mean, you know, we've handled a number of escalator cases. They can have, the escalator doesn't stop.
Right.
So when you fall, that escalator keeps going, and there's a lot of power behind, you know, this machine moving. And a lot of times they can malfunction. It's difficult to say what happened here, but I've seen situations where the actual step has had a problem with it, like there's some liquid on a step, or one of those ridges is broken, or foot catches in one of those ridges. Or a
shoestring gets in there.
That's right. I've seen that. And sometimes, you know, you just see people lose their balance and become unstable, and, you know, then this kind of thing can happen. So it's difficult to say exactly what happened in that one, whether or not this fella's foot caught on something that was broken with the escalator, or whether or not this was just him losing his balance and falling. But they can be very dangerous. They're dangerous for children, and they can malfunction. And when they malfunction, there can be some very, very, very serious injuries with these things that we've seen before. I mean, it can be really bad.
So call in your questions, slips, trips, and falls tonight. The 31 Law Call number, 536-0077. You can call in or you can text us, and we'll be having some of your text messages as well. Okay. Maybe start us off with what duty people owe to one another. So if you're going to a store, what responsibility does the store have to make it safe? Or if somebody's coming to my house, what responsibility do I have to make sure that it's safe?
Well, basically, if you own a business, you have a responsibility to the public to keep your business in a reasonably safe condition. Just be reasonable and keep it safe. And if you have identified a hazard that you created or you should have known about, and by hazard I mean, is there water on the ground? Is there something that could cause somebody to trip? Is there oil on the ground? Something along those lines would be considered a hazard. But if you could have identified that hazard, or if you created that hazard, then you have a responsibility as a business owner to warn folks about it or to clean it up. And if somebody gets hurt because of it, then you can be responsible.
Okay. We got in this email question from Matt. Matt wrote in and said, last week, I saw a lady drop a gallon of milk and it spilled everywhere, and she just walked away. Now, that's not the store's fault, but even after I told somebody, it took a while for them to clean that up. How long does a store have to fix a problem before they become responsible for injuries caused by it? Okay, so in a grocery store or in a big box store, there are going to be some things that happen. If a customer drops something, is the store responsible if somebody slips in it right away?
You know, not necessarily, and this is something that we should all be aware of when we're going into stores, when we're going into folks' houses, anytime we're on premises. The better idea is that if you see something on a floor that could be considered a hazard and you're at a store, go and tell the management. Go and tell somebody that works with the store that there's a hazard on the floor. I know I do it all the time because you never want to see somebody fall on a concrete floor and hit their head or break their arm, because it can happen, and it can happen really, really quickly. And we try to prevent those things. But if we do what we're supposed to do, if we see some water on the floor, or we see a lady spill some milk, and we go tell the management, or we go tell an employee, and they just kind of fluff it off, then they could be responsible. The business could be responsible if somebody trips and falls or slips in whatever hazard you're trying to warn about. And that comes back to, should the business owner have known about the hazard? And really, you look at how much time had passed for that hazard to actually be on the ground or be in an area where it could cause somebody an injury. So this is the situation we deal with in every single premises liability case that we have, is should the business owner, dealing with a business, should the business owner have known about this hazard in time to clean it up? Okay. So if you're walking on the floor and somebody spills some liquid on the floor and the next person falls on it, you're probably not going to be able to hold a business owner responsible. But if you've got cart tracks through milk and somebody told the manager, that's a different story.
Okay. If something like that happens, if a loved one of yours slips and falls, of course you're going to get, medical help right away. But if you can take some pictures or something about collecting the evidence, would be very important.
That's right. A picture's worth 1,000 words. But I mean, if you fall in a store, and the first thing you want to do is make sure you're safe. Make sure you don't need immediate medical attention. Make sure that you can get out and get the help that you need. If you are able to get one of your loved ones to take a picture, we see that from time to time, then it's always advisable to try to gather as much evidence as you want. Evidence is kind of like water. It evaporates. But in reality, we rarely see pictures when somebody has fallen, just because when you're on the ground, the thing you're thinking about is, what is going on with me? So a lot of times we end up having to rely upon videos from these businesses about what happened. And a store owner is responsible for maintaining evidence that could be important to determining what happened.
Okay.
And so
most stores do have cameras now,
that's right? Most do.
So if something like that happens, you probably need to put them on notice that you want that video, right?
Very important point. So a lot of these cameras, they turn over.
Yeah.
So they're called closed caption cameras. So they turn over every 30 days is generally the thing. So if you don't tell the store owner, hey, I got hurt, I fell, I broke my leg, or they have no way of knowing, then that camera is just going to roll over and nobody's going to know what happened. So it's essential that if you get hurt in a store or on somebody else's premises, contact a lawyer. Let's get a letter over there and let's say, hey, look, if you've got a video, hold on to it. If you've got some photos, hold on to it, because that is evidence that they have. Not only does the business store have a responsibility to keep, but you may need down the road to prove your case.
And they can be in big trouble if they don't hold on to it after that letter.
They absolutely can. You can get in big trouble as a business. In fact, the law could presume that the business was responsible for your injury if they
because they didn't
evidence.
keep the evidence.
Yeah.
Okay, talk a little bit about the difference between different state laws, because we've got people that are watching from Tennessee. We're in Alabama. You also do cases in Georgia,
right?
There's a little bit of difference in the law surrounding premises liability, that if you are dealing with a situation like this, you probably want to talk about it with a lawyer before you're making statements and things with insurance companies.
Yeah, that's right. So a premises liability is a little different scenario than if you've been involved in an automobile wreck, where somebody else ran a stop sign and they caused you to be injured. A premises liability situation, whether you're in Tennessee, whether you're in Alabama, whether you're in Georgia, the law is not a statute. The law is based upon what a judge has said, or judges have said, over 150 years of writing opinions. So the law is very complicated and very difficult to maneuver through, and which is why when you get injured on somebody else's property, you may have an insurance company call you almost immediately and talk to you about how you fell, why you fell, what you knew, what you didn't know, and that is an attempt attempt to be able to manipulate the law in whatever state you fell in to get out of responsibility.
So like Tennessee, you said Tennessee is a little bit different. What are they trying to get you to say if you're in Tennessee?
Under Tennessee law, if the plaintiff, if the person who was injured does not know exactly what caused them to fall, precisely what caused them to fall, with certainty what caused them to fall, they cannot recover under Tennessee law. And so an insurance company is always going to try to get somebody who fell to say, well, you don't know 150% what caused you to fall. You could have done something else. And
if I say, well, I'm pretty sure, I've just blown the case.
You may lose your case.
So talk to a lawyer beforehand, not to tell you to change your testimony, but they're looking for you to be chivalrous or to be gentle in what you say.
You always want to talk to an attorney when you're involved in these cases.
Okay. Talk to us a little bit about if you live in an apartment complex.
Yeah.
Is it my responsibility to be sure that the sidewalks everywhere around my apartment are safe? If the postal carrier delivers something and trips in front of my apartment bringing my box, am I in trouble?
So let's unpack that. So when you're in an apartment complex, the apartment complex is in terms of the actual tenant, in terms of if you actually rent your own apartment, then your landlord has some responsibilities to maintain your apartment. But what happens if you have a friend that's coming over and they have to walk along a sidewalk before they get to your apartment? Well, in that scenario, we call those areas that are not your apartment but owned by the apartment complex the common areas. And the landlord has the same responsibility that a business owner would have. They have a duty to keep those common areas in a reasonably safe condition, both to you as the tenant in the apartment and to the visitors that you may have there. So if the landlord allows ice to build up on a sidewalk, or if the landlord allows some sort of hazard to exist, holes in the grass, they could be responsible if a visitor is visiting the apartment and gets hurt.
Okay, if the same delivery person is bringing something and instead of it's an apartment, it's my house and I own my house, and the sidewalk leading up to or something on my porch that I've left out there,
right.
If they trip over that, am I in trouble from my house?
You know, this is a new development under Alabama law that we've been dealing with. So generally speaking, if you're going to go into a business, you're going to be providing that business a benefit. And that's the term. When you provide a business a benefit, then they owe you certain responsibilities to keep their premises safe. Well, the same sort of analogy can be presented to a postal employee, because a postal employee, when that postal employee comes to your house or comes to your apartment, they are providing you a benefit. So if your steps to your house are not kept in a reasonably safe condition and a postal employee falls on your steps, you could be responsible for the postal employee's injuries.
And I get a lot of deliveries. All of us are starting,
right.
we do so many more deliveries now, things being shipped in from Amazon.
You know, I look at my own steps and I'm like, well, I got some pine straw on my steps, I better blow it off.
I'm thinking about things that we need to move off of my steps.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, we got this. We welcome you to call in 536-0077 or text. We got this question from Patricia. It's kind of along these lines. My neighbors make excessive noise and I call the law and they stop for a little while, but it causes me to have a migraine. So my neighbor's making noise. What can I do about that?
Well, you know, it depends on really where you are. If you're in Madison County, there's a noise ordinance. You can't exceed a certain decibel level of noise. And if you do, then you can be responsible for what's called a nuisance. And if you have a neighbor that's being loud and causing a nuisance, and you have contacted authorities a number of occasions and they've come out and done the warning, what you can do is you can go down to the circuit court, to the district court of Madison County, and you can file what's called an injunction. File for an injunction to force your neighbor to stop the loud noise. It becomes a little more difficult when you're trying to sue your neighbor for physical damages for getting a migraine because of noise. You really want to go through the injunction first.
Okay, we're going to take a break. We've got callers on the line waiting, so stay on the line if you're on the line. We'll be right back answering your questions about slips, trips, and falls.
You're watching WAAY 31 Law Call. Your rights, your calls, live. Presented by the Tennessee Valley's award-winning personal injury and wrongful death law firm, Timberlake, League & Brooks. Featuring the knowledge and experience of Attorney Michael Timberlake, Attorney Will League, Attorney Heath Brooks, Attorney William Maservi. and hosted by broadcaster and family law attorney Sharon Doviet. This is WAAY 31 Law Call.
In Doviet tonight, we're talking about slips, trips, and falls, premises liability cases. Heath Brooks is here from Timberlake, League and Brooks, and they do those kind of cases all the time.
That's right.
We've got Buddy on the line with a question from Gurley. Hi, Buddy. Thanks for waiting. What's your question tonight? Hi, Buddy. Are you with us? Buddy from Gurley? Okay, there you are.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, sir. What's your question tonight? Thanks for calling.
I was in a store, and I reported to the cashier.
Yes, sir.
That they had a spill back into some sodas. I stepped in it, and slipped a little bit. And I reported it to the cashier. And she told me she didn't do cleanups. So if I did slip and fall, who would get me out of the store? You know, I was just trying to be nice, tell them, you got a spill back here, somebody needs to clean it up.
Sure.
But she said she was the cashier, so she don't do cleanups.
Well, Buddy, let me go ahead and tell you. Everybody who is working in this store at that point in time has a responsibility to do cleanups. That's just the way it goes. And I would think that if you were to talk to her manager, or you were to talk to the owner of that business, they're going to tell you that most assuredly that cashier is cleaning up, or at the very least put a warning sign up to warn that spill could cause somebody else harm. You did the right thing. You told the employee, hey, look, you got a danger over here, and I just slipped in it. And thank goodness you didn't fall. But after that, you don't have a responsibility to clean it up. That's their responsibility. That's the cashier. That's everybody else in the store who's responsible. And I can tell you this too. The store is responsible for the conduct of their employees. And that's a fancy Latin term called respondet superior. And what that means is that if I'm an employee and I do something that's negligent, I do something that is wrong, and I'm on the job, then the store is going to be responsible when I don't do what I'm supposed to do. So, there's a couple of different ways that you would find responsibility there. One on the part of the employee and one on the part of the actual store.
We got this email question. This is from Shannon. Shannon says, neighbor was having a campfire in his backyard, and we're all sitting around when he threw a big log on the fire to keep it going. This caused a hot coal to jump out onto my lower leg. It caught my pants on fire for a minute. I have a large oozing burn that I had to get treated at the ER, and I'm going to go to the doctor on Tuesday about this. Shouldn't my neighbor have to pay for this? He says it was an accident and he's acting weird. Okay, does the neighbor have to pay for this? Is homeowners insurance? What is this?
And I'll tell you, Shannon, I know this story pretty well, having grown up, in the middle of nowhere around a whole bunch of fires where wood gets thrown in the fire and everybody spreads out if the coals come out, or you're sitting there and a coal pops, or somebody stupidly throws something in the fire. And we've if you've sat around enough fires, you've had shoes burned and pants legs burned and burns on your body and those kinds of things. And they can be very, very dangerous. And you always have to be careful around a fire. And there's a couple of things to unpack there. If you have a friend of yours that takes something and throws it in the fire, like a can of hairspray or something, and it explodes and it causes an injury, that's a different story. That's negligent conduct. That person could be responsible for causing you injuries, maybe even reckless conduct, where you could get some punitive damages. But if there's somebody who's putting wood on the fire, and as a result of putting wood on the fire, you have a coal or something get on you and burns you, then it's not very likely that person is going to be responsible, particularly if you're on their property. At that point in time, going to be responsible for your injuries. The important thing to know there, though, is that if you suffered any kind of injury that required medical treatment, most of the time, if that person had homeowners insurance, there could be some medical payments benefits that are available for you. And what that is that's a type of insurance most of us have under our homeowners insurance policy that'll take care of folks who may be on our property, may not be something that we're negligent about, but they may have suffered an injury that requires medical treatment. I know I have it on my policy. If somebody gets hurt on my property and they have to go to the doctor, then hopefully my insurance can step in and take care of their copays, or if they don't have insurance, take care of their medical bills.
It's just going to be a question of how much how much do you value the friendship with the neighbor?
That's right.
How far are you going to go with it?
And you have that sometimes, but you know, a different story if somebody intentionally throws something in the fire and or is really, really stupid about it.
So we were talking, it's not summertime, but we were talking about water parks. We're talking about so many amusement parks that are out there. Water parks, cement everywhere, and you think of the number of kids that are going to be running and they're going to hit heads and break legs and things. Talk to me a little bit about parks and amusement parks.
You know, we have that coming up now too. I mean, you know, you have the indoor water parks. You have, you know, you have the events we go to up in Nashville and the things around here that we go to for Christmas that, you know, we go inside these buildings and they have rides and things like that. I mean, it's all the same kind of thing. There's a couple things to be aware of. If you're going into a amusement park of any kind, whether it's a water park or whether it's a place where there's rides inside or whatever this time of year, those people still have a responsibility to maintain the premises in a reasonably safe condition and to warn you of hazards that they knew or they should have known about. The other thing though is that if there are rides or if there is something that is particularly dangerous to what you're doing, we've seen this with some of the amusement parks where a ride malfunctions. You know, I've seen it with water parks where the slides malfunction, where they come apart and somebody's going down and they injure their bike. That's a premises liability case. And now the company has failed to properly maintain their rides or maintain their premises. And so that's a situation where there are claims to be made. They are very difficult to make. And you have a level of proof. We still, as plaintiffs, have a level of proof. We've got to prove that they were negligent in maintaining, but certainly a claim to watch out for.
We've got a caller. I didn't get the name. What's our caller's name? Hi. Hi, thanks for calling. What's your question tonight?
Hi, my name's Dolores.
Hi, Dolores.
I'm always Alabama.
Thanks for calling tonight. What's your question?
Talking about trips and files.
Yes, ma'am.
If someone's delivering your food or anything else and they get hurt on your property by filing, are you responsible for that?
The answer to that is you could be. If they fall and it's through no fault of yours, in other words, they just trip over their own feet or something like that, then you're probably not going to be responsible for that. But if there is a hazard on your property, if you have gapes in your concrete or uneven surfaces, or if your steps aren't up to code and they slip going up your steps, you could be responsible. So you need to make sure that if you have people providing you benefits, that your premises are safe.
We're going to take a break. Be right back answering more of your questions about slips, trips, and falls. If you didn't get your questions answered tonight, here's how to get in touch with Heath Brooks with Timberlake, League & Brooks. They are personal injury attorneys, so that's everything from slip and fall cases to car accidents and medical malpractice cases and nursing home negligence. 256-536-0770 or 800-804-2502. The website is law-injury.com. And if you like them on Facebook, you can learn more about the law that way.
And if you need to talk with Sharon Doviet, she does family law. That's anything from child custody to divorces to even adoptions. She can be reached at 256-539-7337, or you can get her on the web at www.sharonfamilylaw.com.
Thank you for all your questions tonight. We'll see you next week.